Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Now today is going to be part 2 of my Bruins all-time team. Now a few weeks ago I dropped part 1, that was the forwards. Now today is going to the defensemen and the goalies. Now there's going to be 6 defensemen and 2 goalies with a couple of honorable mentions, as there's a lot of tough competition for the Bruins all-time team. Especially in the goalies, there were a lot of high-quality goalies who could make this list that just missed out. But obviously, at the very end of the episode, I'm also going to mention the full team. So I'll rehash the forwards that I mentioned last episode, and I'm also going to have the ones from this episode. And that's going to be at the end of this video, so stay tuned if you want to hear the full team as a whole. Now, before I get into the defensemen and the goalies, I would like to let you know about the link to the Fanatics website that's going to be in the description. Any of your sporting apparel needs that you want, whether it's anything Boston Bruins related, like a jersey, t-shirt, hat, even stickers and keychains, they have all at the Fanatics website. So yeah, I'm going to leave a link to the Fanatics in the description. Go check it out. It's a great website. I got a lot of apparel from there, and I really enjoy it. Really, really good prices. And also, you should all check out the Black and Gold Hockey podcast. I'll leave a link to that iTunes link. And I'm also going to leave a link to the Black and Gold Hockey website and Twitter. The Black and Gold Hockey podcast, it's a great listen. Mark and Heather, they're the co-hosts of it, and they both do a great job. They have a lot of great talk, and I really enjoy it. And the website, there's a lot of great writers who work for Black and Gold Hockey. So, there's a lot of great reads. You can't go wrong with any of the articles that have been posted. So I'm going to leave a link to all that in the description, so I recommend that you go check it out. Now, starting off with the honorable mentions for this video, I'm going to start with, I have 2 defensemen and 2 goalies who are honorable mentions for this team. First up, I'm the defenseman. It's going to be Don Sweeney. Now, he's in the front office of the Bruins right now, but he had a great career in Boston. Spent 15 seasons with the Bruins from 1988 to 2003. Had 52 goals, 210 assists for 262 points with 663 penalty minutes and a plus 90 rating in 1,052 games. He is the very definition of a local Boston boy, the lifer in Boston. Didn't play his whole career, but he spent the majority of his career in Boston, and he was a fan favorite when he did play for the Bruins. Now, another defenseman was a man who played for the Bruins from 1953 to 1964. He played 11 seasons, over 710 games played. He scored 118 goals, had 229 assists for 347 points, racked up a total of 677 penalty minutes. However, he did have the lowest plus-minus ratio at a minus 154, but this was Doug Moans. Now, he's a great defenseman for the Bruins. Again, he was one of the all-time leaders of the Bruins. I think he just misses out on being one of the top 6 forwards in Bruins history. Now, as for the goalies, this was really tough, because there were 5 goalies you really could say could make this team. Tim Thomas, I didn't put him here as honorable mention, but he does deserve a quick shout-out. But he's not honorable mention, he's just a quick shout-out. The 2 goalies who I think are honorable mentions are Gerry Cheevers and Tuukka Rask. Now, Tuukka Rask is the all-time leader in wins for the Bruins, having played 536 games and won 291 games. That was a 291, 158, and 50 record all-time, with a 226 goals against average and a .922 save percentage. He's been playing for the Bruins since 2007, and it's been 13 seasons. He's been, obviously, the current goalie for the Bruins. He's been with the Bruins for a long time. It took over Tim Thomas for a little bit before Thomas took it back. But Tuukka Rask he's actually been fairly consistent for the Bruins in the recent years since he became the full-time starter after Tim Thomas left. He's really been a key figure for the Bruins. He's actually been one of the most important people for the Bruins this year. As obviously he was named a finalist for the Vezina Trophy, and he very well could win it. I think he should. I'm not sure if he will or not, but he's one of the best goalies the Bruins have ever had. And the other one, Gerry Cheevers, he played with the Bruins from 1965 to 1980. Obviously, he was a key part of the 2 Stanley Cup winning teams in the 70s. Played 416 games for the Bruins with 226 wins, a total record of 226, 103, and 26. Posted a 2.89 goals against average and a .901 save percentage across his 12 seasons in the black and gold. Now, Cheevers, again, a lot of people are saying he could be the best goalie. The reason why I don't have him as one of the top 2 A lot of people like him because of the sentimental, because obviously how important he was to the 70, 72 cup winning teams. But I don't think he is better than the top two goalies. If you look at the stats, and he was very good, but I think he just missed out on that ability that his fan favorite doesn't make up for. Yeah, those are the honorable mentions for this team. Now, onto the defensemen. I'm going to take this line by line in terms of defensive pairing. Now, the pairing's not necessarily what you're going to see, what you would see on the ice. So typically you want to have your left defenseman and right defenseman. This could be 2-1, but it's just more just the top 6 defensemen, and they really could play anywhere. Yeah, so starting off with the third pairing of defensemen. Now, I did rank them, but the third defenseman pairing, the first one will be Torey Krug. Now, Torey Krug has played for the Bruins 9 seasons after joining the team in 2011. He's played 523 games, has scored 67 goals, and recorded 270 assists for 337 points. He's only racked up 220 penalty minutes with a plus 23 plus minus. Now, Torey Krug, I think, might be the really controversial pick here, but in my opinion, I think he has done a lot for the Bruins. Obviously, he's a fan favorite. Everyone loves him. Everyone really wants him to stay, seeing as he's a free agent after the current season. But I really think Torey Krug would be, I think he has proven to be one of the best defensemen for the Bruins in their history. Again, this is the one I think you could throw in someone else like Don Sweeney here. But I just think Torey Krug he really has been a two-way defenseman. He's going to get you the goals. He's going to be really involved. He's key on the power play. But he's also a really solid defenseman. And he also has got a lot of heart, which I really enjoy. As you saw from last year's Stanley Cup Final, that big hit he did. He gets into a bit of a scrum in his own defensive area. And then he's hit the full head of steam into steamrolls into the Blues player. No, it was a very clean hit. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to get the crowd going and how to make a big hit and also make it really clean. That's why Torey Krug is one of the third pairing for the defenseman of the all-time team. Now, the other defenseman on the third pairing is going to be Brad Park. He played 8 seasons in Boston from 1975 to 1983. He also played 501 games with 553 penalty minutes and a plus 233 plus minus. Now, he recorded 100 goals, 317 assists for 417 points in his career in Boston. Now, Brad Park, again, he just missed out on being part of the Stanley Cup winning teams in the early 70s, but he was one of those really iconic defensemen in the Bruins. Now, one thing you're going to notice is there really is a pattern for the Bruins. They've always seemed to have one cornerstone defenseman on their team, and for a long time. Obviously, you're going to see some names later on here that fill in before Brad Park and the ones after Brad Park. But there's rarely a season where you're not going to see the Bruins have a standout defender. One time that really stands out would be the early 2000s. That was a bit of an overlap between two very, very big cornerstones of the Bruins defense. But Brad Park was that key cornerstone from the late 70s to the early 80s. He was the overlap between probably the two biggest cornerstone defenders. So he's a bit underrated, but I really think he was iconic. He was a very good defenseman. Obviously, that plus minus means he was on the ice a lot for offense and also not as much for defense when the other teams were scoring. So he was doing a good job of shutting down the other team while he was contributing to the offense. He had a lot of points. He actually has the 4th most points for a Bruins defenseman, as only 3 more. They're going to be on this list as well, as you'll see in the top 4 defensemen. But Brad Park was an all-around defenseman. I really think he is underrated, and I really feel like he's been one of the best defensemen in Bruins history. That's why I have him as the second defenseman on this third defensive pairing for the Bruins all-time team. Now, moving on to the second defensive pairing for this all-time team, we're going to start off with the oldest defender on the team to have played, and it was a man who played from 1926 to 1940, played 14 seasons, recording 1,090 penalty minutes in 542 games. He also recorded 103 goals, 176 assists for 279 points, and that would be Eddie Shore. He was probably the very first cornerstone defenseman for the Bruins. Obviously, having played in 1926, he's been there since basically the beginning, and he was the key player for that Bruins team in the early days. A part of a couple of Stanley Cup winning teams in 1939 and also 1929. So he was a part of both those the Stanley Cup winning teams, and he was the key player for them. He was the man on the back line for them. And you were looking for a defenseman in that era, you were looking at a type like Eddie Shore. He was a very good defensive player. He wasn't afraid to be physical, as you can see by those 1,090 penalty minutes. And he was just a really all-around sound defenseman who also contributed quite a bit offensively in a time when there wasn't as much offense. The defense was a huge part back then, and he was a massive player for the Bruins. And now the second defenseman on the second pairing, it has to be the captain, and it's got to be one of the longest-serving Bruins that I can remember, is Dano Chara. He's been in Boston since 2006, signing as a free agent. He's still on the team now. He's been 14 seasons, and he's in his 40s, and he's still performing at a high level for the Bruins. He's played 1,023 games, which is incredible. He's got a plus 240 in 1,055 penalty minutes. He's recorded 148 goals, 333 assists, and 481 points in his 14 seasons in Boston. Big Z, you can't really get more iconic defenseman for the Bruins. Maybe the top two defensemen, I would say they could be more iconic. In the modern era, Big Z is the man. As being the tallest player to ever play in the NHL at 6'9", and to have the fastest slap shot from the All-Star Game slap shot contest, he's iconic. He's a fan favorite because of everything he does, but that's not what makes him on this list. It's for his skill. And now he actually is a really sneakily good offensive defenseman for the Bruins, but he doesn't go for that much. I mean, he's played 14 seasons and he's scored 148 goals. He's averaging more than 10 goals a season, which is really impressive for someone who's on defense. But a lot of those are just his booming slap shots from the point. Anytime he's at the point and you see him winding up for a slap shot, get out of the way. You're not going to stop it, and if you do stop it, you're just going to hurt yourself. Chara just has the it factor for the Bruins. He's the physical presence that it kind of reverts back to the old school Bruins, big bad Bruins. But he's got that bit of a soft side, and he's also just got really good offensive abilities. It's really underrated, his offensive ability, in my opinion, because everyone knows just him as the physical player. He's gonna hit, he'll fight, and he'll block because he'll just do everything like that, and he's the leader. But no one really talks about his offensive ability. I remember seeing him score some crazy goals in the past. He just is that player where you don't expect a lot, but he just performs consistently. And that's why Big Z makes this team. And moving on to the top two defensemen in Bruins history, these two really are self-explanatory. You have one of the longest-serving Bruins in history, and you have one of the greatest players to ever play for the Boston Bruins. First up, we're going to go with the longest-serving player, a man who spent 21 seasons in the black and gold from 1979 to 2000. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to win a cup in Boston. However, he did finally win his cup in 2001 with the Colorado Avalanche. And that was one of the few times you can say a Bruins fan was happy for another team to win the Stanley Cup. Because everyone wanted him to win the Stanley Cup. And he left the Bruins in a trade to Colorado because he wasn't going to win the cup in Boston. And everyone was... It was a heart move to take because obviously he is such an iconic Bruins player. But everyone wanted him to win the cup, and he finally got that in 2001 with the Avalanche. It is none other than Raymond Bourque. Now, Ray Bourque is the all-time leading goal scorer and point scorer among all Bruins defensemen, having scored 395 goals, 1,111 assists for 1,506 points. That is an incredible tally for a defenseman. He racked up 1,087 penalty minutes with a plus 493 in 1,518 games on the Bruins' defensive line. Now, Ray Bourque is just, you really can't say too much about him. Everyone knows about him. He's one of the best defensemen the Bruins have ever had. I think he is the second best offensive defenseman the Bruins have ever had, behind the number one defenseman. But he was consistent. He was obviously 21 seasons in Boston, nearly scored 400 goals and over 1,000 assists. You don't see those numbers. He set all these records for defensemen in terms of offense. Between him and the other top defensemen here, they're just two of the best offensive defensemen in the history of the NHL. And there's no denying that Ray Bourque is one of the top two defensemen in Bruins history. Now, the number one defenseman in Bruins history, this one, everyone could have predicted it. It is number 4, Bobby Orr. Now, his career was a bit shorter in Boston, having spent 10 seasons after being a rookie in 1966, going through the 1976 season. Now, he could have been here a lot longer, but unfortunately, there are situations that occurred, and he ended up going to Chicago Blackhawks to finish his career. However, he made his name for himself in Boston in his 10 seasons with the Bruins. Now, he only played 631 games because he did have a lot of injuries in his time in Boston, and he was the key figure for the Bruins for the two Cup-winning teams in 1970 and 1972. Obviously, the most iconic moment was his goal in Game 4 of the 1970 Stanley Cup Final to win it in overtime to secure the Bruins the Stanley Cup. That diving goal was one of the greatest moments in hockey history, and there's no doubt that it was part of the reason that he is one of the best players in the history of NHL. No, I think he is up there for one of the best players in NHL history. But he scored 264 goals, 624 assists for 888 points, 924 penalty minutes, and a plus 574 in 631 games. I mean, you can't say anything else. He is the greatest defenseman in Bruins history. Number 4, Bobby Orr. No one can top him. He is the best defenseman, and I think the best player in Boston Bruins history. Now, moving on to the goalies for this team. Now, it was really hard to choose the two best goalies for the Bruins in our history. Obviously, Tim Thomas made a name for himself. Tuukka Rask currently is being one of the best goalies. Jerry Cheevers was iconic. But there were two goalies who, in my opinion, stood above and beyond the rest. And the second best goalie, who I think will be the backup for this all-time team, is going to be Frank Broomstick. Now, Broomstick played 444 games for the Bruins with 230, 144, and 35 record, with a 257 goals against average in his 9 seasons in Boston from 1938 to 1949. Now, he was the key player in a couple of the cup runs in the 1939 Stanley Cup and 1941 Cup. He was a member of both those teams, and he was the main goalie for those teams. Without him, I don't think they would have won the cup. He was iconic in the Bruins, and his numbers back it up. He may not have the best goals against average or second best, but he was just an unreal player. Now, he doesn't have a save percentage, and neither will the first goalie. That's because the time they played that wasn't kept track of. However, you have to bet his save percentage was very high. But Frank Broomstick, in my opinion, is the second best goalie to ever play for the Boston Bruins. And the number one goalie for the Boston Bruins is the man who Broomstick replaced, and that is Tiny Thompson. Tiny Thompson spent 11 seasons in Boston, from 1928 to 1939. He actually left the team midway through the 38-39 season, in which the Bruins won the Stanley Cup. So he played part earlier in the season, but injuries happened. He ended up being traded to, I believe, Detroit, and Frank Broomstick came in and became a starter and led the Bruins to the Stanley Cup that year. But Tiny Thompson is the best Bruins goalie in history in his own right. He was a rookie for the 1928-29 season, but he was the starter for the team, and he led them to the Stanley Cup. And he had one Stanley Cup, he was a great goalie. He won a lot of awards as being a goalie. He played 468 games with 252 wins, which was the most in Bruins history until Tuukka Rask beat him earlier. But he also had a record of 252, 153, and 74. And he boasted a career 1.99 goals against average. When you ever have a below 2 goals against average, that's really impressive. Especially since there's you don't see a lot of goalies in the low two. You'll see every once in a while, and it's really impressive. But more often than not, you're going to see in the twos. Typically, low twos are the better goalies, but you can see anywhere in the twos. But having a sub two over your entire career, that speaks numbers about what a player did. And Ty Thompson really showed it. And a lot of the debate, like who the best goalie is, in my opinion, it has to be Tiny Thompson. You don't really get more iconic in terms of Bruins goalies than the original TT. And that again has to be Tiny Thompson. That's why he is the number one goalie for the all-time Bruins team. And so there you have it. There is my complete Boston Bruins all-time team for the defense and the goalies. Now I'm going to go through the whole team just so you have a full picture of what the team is. So on the fourth line, on the left you have Don Marcotte, on the right you have Ken Hodge, and in the middle you have David Krejci. On the third line, on the left you have Wayne Cashman, the right is Dick Clapper, in the center is Milt Schmidt. Then the second line, you have Terry O'Reilly and Cam Neely on the wings, with Patrice Bergeron in the middle. And on the first line, you have Johnny Busick and Rick Middleton, the wingers, and Phil Esposito is the center for the line. Then moving to the defense, the third pairing will be Torey Krug and Brad Park. The second pairing is Dano Chara and Eddie Shore. And the first pairing is Ray Bourque and Bobby Orr. And the goalies, the backup is Frank Broomstick, and the starter is Tiny Thompson. Now, this all-time Bruins team is compiled of several greats, many current Hall of Famers, and I think a few future Hall of Famers as well. Now, if you like this video, leave a like. Please leave a comment. Any other videos you might want to see on the channel, please take a look at the Black and Gold Hockey website and podcast. Follow the Black and Gold Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at cmoney008. Check the Fanatics website if you want any sports apparel. And I'm hopefully going to be back with next week with a video. And I'm actually going to be starting a new little mini series where I'm actually going to be doing NHL 20 simulations for the Bruins games in the playoffs here. So I'll be starting off with the game for the just the exhibition game against Columbus. I'll start with that. But then I'll have one for each of the round robin games against Philadelphia, Washington, and Tampa Bay. And then whoever the Bruins play for their series, I will have a quick little simulation of that as well. But thank you all for watching this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.